So successful ads really start way back here, spending that time to identify who your avatar is, how to speak to them, what it is that they're saying, crafting that copy so that when you put that into an ad set, whether it's broad targeting or even if you do some targeting options in there, that it is going to be drawing out your ideal clients.
Hello, Profit First entrepreneurs and thought leaders. I am so excited today because we are going to talk Facebook ad strategy, all that's been happening in 2022. We have a very special guest with us. Her name is Jody Millward, and Jody is the founder and CEO of a company called Social Charlie. Now, Jody has a different background. You know, she started off as a former private investigator, and she's also a two-time seven-figure business owner. She's grown two companies beyond seven figures. And what she does is she brings her investigator background into the world of Facebook ads, where she really finds those clues that create those profitable ads. Jody started dabbling in Facebook in 2014, and within the first 2 years, helped a client generate $1 million in revenue within their first 9 months of selling an online program. So she's had quite a bit of success at it. Today, Jody owns a coaching and digital course where she literally coaches you to create your own Facebook ads, as well as she does done for you ads. So please join me in welcoming Jody to the platform. Hey, Jody, how are you doing today?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Susanne.
Well, we're excited. We're excited to talk Facebook ads, tips, tricks, and also how do we navigate this new world of what the iOS, right? Privacy rulings. So tell me, first of all, tell me about what's going on in the Facebook ads world. Is this where we should be focusing at? And how do we do this?
Great question. I mean, because like you said, things have changed so much with Facebook ads and with all the iOS changes. So it's got a lot harder to run Facebook ads. There's the setup. There's a lot more things we need to do with our setup before we even go and launch an ad. But we need to remember, though, even though it's changed for us as an advertiser, as a business owner, that our clients who are just scrolling through the newsfeed on Facebook are blissfully unaware of any changes. They're still going to Facebook to see what their cousins are doing, what their friends are doing, to do their posts, to do their highlight reel or whatever. They're still there and using Facebook. So for advertisers, we still need to be there. Business owners still need to be there because that's where our ideal clients are.
I love that. And so let's talk about some of these changes to Facebook ads. I remember there was a time that you could just go on a Facebook, create an ad manager account, target your neighborhood or your state or your city. Tell me about what's going on in the world of Facebook ads right now.
Wow. Okay. So like I said, with all the iOS 14 changes and continual privacy updates, there is a lot more setup that's required. So businesses would typically want to do their lead generation campaigns. Okay. They want to get people onto their list, which 100% we want to do. We want to get people off of Facebook and onto our own database so that we can email them and contact them at any time that we want. Now, to do those sorts of campaigns, those conversion campaigns, there is a lot more setup that's needed. So we need to do a domain verification and set up aggregated events and various other things. So a bit more technical. But another great way for businesses to stay front and center of mind with their ideal client is to focus on some brand awareness. So a lot of businesses will do TV campaigns and radio campaigns where they're not exactly tracking, data and statistics, but you can do that same thing on Facebook much more cost effectively, and you can still actually see data and metrics and know exactly how many people you've got in front of. So in combination with our lead generation activities where we want to get people off of Facebook and onto our list, by investing, and it can just be $10 a day, into these brand awareness kind of campaigns so that you're staying front and center of mind to your ideal clients or customers is a great way to go on Facebook. So lead generation, getting people on the list, but then just always being in their newsfeed so that when they're ready to buy or they're talking to a friend who's talking about XYZ, the problem that you solve, you can say, hey, I've been seeing ads from this, I've been seeing this business on Facebook. Maybe you should reach out to them. So just being in the newsfeed, establishing that awareness of your business, building affinity with your ideal clients, and establishing yourself as the authority in that niche who they can go to help solve their problem, it can be very effectively done for just $10 a day.
I love that. I love that. $10 a day. Yeah. To stay front and centered. They say it takes, 41 touches to go from cold to close, meaning that, someone's not going to buy you until they know, like, and trust you. And so just seeing you out there for a while, right, increases that likelihood of them buying from you much quicker, right? Than, because it takes a while to get those 41 touches.
That's right. It does. It does. But with our ads, because so many of us are going, okay, we've got to do social media. We've got to do all these posts. And it's that constant feeding that social media machine of putting stuff out all the time. With these kind of strategies, these brand awareness strategies, it's what we call an evergreen system, that you can have these ads and people can just come through them so beautifully that you can have these ads that just pop up in their news feed every day for 30 days. And then it goes on for, they change in another 30-day cohort. They get fresh ads. So they're not seeing the same things every time. And if there's a progression along that sort of customer journey, as they get more aware of, oh, okay, right, this is something that I've been wanting to resolve. And, oh, wow, there is someone that can help me with that. You can put specific content pieces in front of them. It's evergreen. And so you're not on that constant social media or chase of, I've got to post, I've got to post. They'll see you in their newsfeed. And actually, it's a much greater chance that they're going to see you in their newsfeed rather than just doing that organic social media post.
I love that. So you're saying that you can actually have your content auto update so that they're constantly seeing fresh articles, fresh posts from you with that?
So it's not auto update, though. If you were to do a new post, say each week, you could just go into Ads Manager and put like $1 a day or $2 a day, depending on your audience size, behind that post to just amplify it in the newsfeed. Because as we know, so many of us will do a post and then we get crickets, right? Hardly anyone sees it. So if you were to just put like $2 a day behind it to push it out, just even to your warm audiences, or if you've got like a local area that you're wanting to target, then just pushing it out to that area, it's going to get seen rather than all that work just getting posted organically and not getting seen by anyone. So you can manually do that. But then what you can do is put that into a campaign that just says, I want this ad to go out to this audience in the next 30 days, but don't show it to them every day. Just show it to them, say, every 3 or 4 days. So it's just popping up in their newsfeed. Because like you said, that those touch points that people need, 41, chances are they're not going to notice it the first time, maybe even the second time, but the third time it might catch their eye and they'll finally read it.
Oh, yeah. It becomes subconscious. It's like, oh, my Facebook friend, there she goes.
Yes.
Right there. So let's talk about targeting, right? That's the big thing that happened with the iOS update, right? We were no longer able to specifically target who our ideal client was in a very easy way because Facebook can't tell, right? Facebook can't tell the buying habits anymore. How do we adjust to this new targeting world? Because, only person's getting rich is Mark Zuckerberg. I tell you, he succeeds whether you target or not, right? How do we get this targeting right in this new iOS world?
So an important thing to remember with this is with the iOS 14 updates, that applies to people who are on iPhones, right? They're using the iOS 14 or more. So it's people who are using Apple iPhones, and then it's got the app tracking transparency prompt saying, do you want this to track you? Yes or no? And yes, 93, 94, 96% of people are opting out, but it's iPhone only. So that means that we're still getting the data back from people who are on desktops. We're still getting the data back from people who are on Android devices. So data still is coming in. It's iPhones, iOS 14 plus that is affected. Now, granted, that is a huge part of the audience, right? There's a lot of people on iPhones. And generally, when you are running Facebook ads, it will go out, Facebook will deliver your ads to about 90% of the traffic will be on iPhones. Oh, sorry, not just iPhones, but phones, mobile devices. So it is a big part of the audience. Now, this is where Facebook has tried to counteract it in what we call aggregated event management, where when you set up your, this is getting a bit technical, but setting up the back end with your ads, you need to set up your aggregated events. And that's saying to Facebook, these are the priorities of my events. Now, typically, if you obviously want purchases as your number one priority, and then you might have leads for people who opt in for guides or complete registration for people who opt in for webinars. So you'll prioritize events. And what that is saying to Facebook is that if this event fires, it's priority in my funnel. So say if you got a webinar funnel and people opt in and it fires the complete registration event. Then people go through, they go to a sales page and they purchase. Well, if you've got that purchase event as your highest priority, Facebook will send that data back to your ads manager. So Facebook still is getting some data through. It is more limited, but it's coming through. And again, getting a bit technical, there is the browser side pixel tracking, which is if someone's on Google or Firefox, it fires the pixel and it comes across. Then we also have server-side tracking, which is called Conversions API, and that is more robust. So that's another way that you can set things up so that you can get more data back from Facebook. So Facebook, you can be sure because that Facebook is doing everything that it can to keep advertisers on the platform, because about 98% of its revenue comes from advertising. So it needs to keep its advertisers there.
I love that. We got to keep the advertisers happy. I remember I was on Instagram, which is, the sister of Facebook. And, I clicked on this ad for a purse, right, from this particular brand. It was a big old bulky purse. And I kept getting other ads, not even from the same company, a big and bulky purse. So they find you. They still find you. You can't run away from Facebook. Those purses are finding you. So it's working somehow. They're figuring it out with that. Now, in terms of a good budget for Facebook ads, tell me, what does that look like? How do you set a budget for what you're expecting to spend for Facebook ads?
Okay, wow, that's a very loaded question. It depends on your goals. As we were saying, if you want to have brand awareness, have that visibility in the newsfeed, then just $10 a day can absolutely do that for you. But when we're talking about list building, for example, it's going to cost you a bit more because you're doing those conversion campaigns and they are the most competitive. That's where everyone is going, I want this hottest audience that's ready to convert. So it's competitive. So those ones cost you a bit more. And we need to feed the Facebook machine with our finances so that we can get the data back. Now, if you are doing a lead generation campaign, you want people to opt in. And if you're only spending $10 a day and it costs you $5 to get someone to opt in, then that's just 2 people a day. And is that going to meet the goals that you have for your business? So that's something that you need to consider. It's like, okay, if I'm doing a webinar and I want to get 5 sales, how many registrations am I going to need for that? Now, if you were to have 100 registrations and you got 5 sales from it, that would be very good. That would be a 5% conversion rate, which would be great. So you've got to figure out, okay, if I want 100 registrations and it typically costs me $5 for a webinar registration, I'm going to need to spend $500. Okay, so you need to figure out what your goals are. And if you don't know how much it costs you for a webinar registration, then you're going to be investing to get that data to find out how much it's going to cost you. So whenever you're launching out with your Facebook ads, just consider that I'm just investing in getting the data so that I can identify possibly where some bottlenecks are, identify how much it's going to cost me for a lead or cost me for a sale here on Facebook. And then if you're doing ads for purchases, right? So if you were saying $37, $97 product, people like to sell to cold audiences, send straight to the sales page. Figuring out what your anticipated cost per acquisition is for that. So typically with those price points, I would say they're self-liquidating offers that they're pretty much going to pay for themselves. So with those ones, I'd say you can be profitable 100%. I've got clients that have made like $1 million with a $27 offer. But typically, you need to have a back end offer. So that $27, $37, even $97 offer is going to just be paying for its ad spend and paying for your lead cost. So that's great. You're building an audience of qualified people. Okay, these people are buyers. And then you want to have something that you can ascend them to, your next product or offer or service. So coming back to your question, it depends on what your goals are. If you just want to be in the newsfeed, be visible, $5, $10, even just $2 a day can get you into the newsfeed. If you are wanting to be building your list, getting people onto your assets, then you're going to need a bit more, like at least $10 a day, because Facebook typically wants 35 to 50 conversion events per week for that ad set. So if you are getting 2 conversions a day, so that's 2 times 7 is 14. So that's only 14 conversion events. So your data's coming through in a bit slower for Facebook to optimize. So that's just for lead purchases. It's going to cost you a bit more. So you need to look at the goals that you may have and just have that mindset of I'm going to be investing in the data.
I love that. I know one of the things that we have to do is we have to, like you said, look at that historical data, look at how much you're spending and how many leads were generated, how many closes were generated based upon that ad spend. And you can figure out that cost per client acquisition as well as the cost per lead. So you know how many leads that you need to have in order to acquire a client, right? Because not 100% of those leads are going to become a client. So you need to be able to get that historical data, build that historical data, and then work backwards into it at that point with that. And so in terms of creating successful ads, are there any tips, Jody, that you have for entrepreneurs that are listening for creating successful ads using the Facebook methodology?
Right. Oh, golden question. That's awesome. Successful Facebook ads start long before you even go into Facebook and Ads Manager. You need to spend time researching who your ideal client is. I've spoken to so many people. Who's your ideal client? Oh, women. That's pretty broad, right? Is it women between these ages? Is it women who have just had babies or women who are in menopause? Who is your ideal audience? So it's really knowing who your ideal audience is. And some people can be afraid to do that, right? Because they feel like they're eliminating a lot of people. And then I'll say, well, follow the money. Who has been paying you already, right? That's a good sign that that might be your ideal audience. So identify who your ideal avatar is. Then get in their head. What is it that people have said back to you? What are those testimonials that have come back to you? Go and look at Amazon and look at book reviews. What books are they looking at? Look at the reviews that people are saying about this same sort of problem that you solve, and use that kind of wording. Say as much as you can of what your client is saying so that they think, wow, you're in my head. So knowing your avatar, dialing in your messaging so that you are speaking very clearly to them, and then writing ad copy that is very compelling, that is making them read it, go, wow, this person knows exactly what I'm going through or what I need. Okay, so spending that time is essential to successful Facebook ads because, and as you mentioned earlier, audiences are changing a lot, right? They're getting pretty messy for us at the moment. Our lookalikes aren't working so well, or they may for some campaigns or accounts. It's all over the place. So we need to go broad a lot of the time, and Facebook is preferring this and things are working well, but something could be very different next week on Facebook. We're just broad audiences where you might just say, Facebook, send this ad to all women between 35 and 55. And so that's where our ad copy is going to have to really attract or repel who it is that we're wanting to call in with our ads. So successful ads really start way back here spending that time to identify who your avatar is, how to speak to them, what it is that they're saying, crafting that copy so that when you put that into an ad set, whether it's broad targeting or even if you do some targeting options in there, that it is going to be drawing out your ideal client. So that's the number one thing for successful Facebook ads, very closely followed by number 2, which is the correct campaign objective. This is something that I see all the time, and even with ad managers, is that this wrong campaign objective is used. So you've gone to all this work, you've created your ad copy, and you know who you're talking to. Remember to use the objective that you're wanting to achieve. So if you are wanting people to be opting in for something, then you need to run a conversion campaign. So conversion campaign that would be optimized for leads or whatever that event is firing when someone opts in. If you use a traffic campaign, for example, because it might be cheaper to get out to people, or Facebook, this is something to watch out for. Facebook, if you do a conversion campaign, Facebook may say, you're not going to get any leads with this, try a traffic campaign instead. What that will do is, and when you do a traffic campaign, it's often optimized for link clicks, which is saying to Facebook, go out and get me lots of people who are going to click on my ad. And so what happens, a lot of people click, but then they don't even wait for the page to load. So you had this huge drop off between, people who have clicked and then people who have landed. And it's just a waste. Even if you were to do a traffic campaign that's optimized for landing page views so that it's getting people to your page, what happens is that they're not going to convert because they are people who are likely to just land on the landing page. They're not likely to convert. So you'll get more people to your page, but your conversions will not be there. And that's going to skew your data for what the conversion rate is on your page. You might say, man, my page is lousy, it's not converting. Well, it's because you're bringing the wrong type of people there. It's bringing people who are going to look at a landing page. So selecting the right campaign objective. So if you're wanting leads, it needs to be a conversion campaign. And so that way Facebook will find you the right people to come to your page who are more likely to convert. And if you are just wanting brand awareness, then an engagement campaign or a video view campaign or even a brand awareness campaign is perfect just to be getting out into the newsfeed. So knowing your ideal avatar, dialing in your messaging, writing compelling copy, and then using the correct campaign objectives are the things that you need to do with your Facebook ads.
I love it. So you guys, you got to know who your target audience is, and then you have to make sure that your campaign is asking you to do the right thing, right? You need to accomplish your objective with that. So Jackie, tell me when you see Facebook ads go wrong, right? Where do you see Facebook ads go wrong and money being wasted?
Okay, well, one of those, just like I said, traffic campaigns when people are after conversions. So that is a big waste right there. So I would say that's probably the biggest one. Let's see, another one where money goes wasted would be so one thing could be if your landing page isn't converting. You could be sending ads, and again, it could be a conversion campaign. You're getting all these people, you spent like $100 or $200 on your ads, and it's cost you $40 to get somebody to opt in for your free guide. Typically, that should be $10 or less, depending on your niche. So you go, okay, there's a big problem here. And what is it? Identifying that bottleneck. Some people would just say, my ads aren't working. But it's knowing the metrics and the numbers. And what we would look at is like, what's the CPM, the cost to reach 1,000 people? Is that too high? Okay, let's work on your audience targeting. Or perhaps it's your ad copy. Let's look at your ad copy. Are people clicking on the ad? Typically with our ads, we want to have a more than 1% click-through rate. Not always possible, depending on a few things, but 1% is typically a benchmark we want to have across all the campaigns. And that's our CTR link clicks. That's telling us the people who have clicked the ad to go off and over to our website to learn more. So if that's around 1%, that's showing us that, hey, people are interested in this. This is actually working. Then it's looking at that landing page. So if you've had 100 people get to that landing page, and only 2 people have opted in, that's a 2% conversion rate. That's lousy. For a guide, we're wanting something like 25% or more. So 25 people should have opted in. So looking at all those numbers, that would say the bottleneck here appears to be the landing page, because only 2% of people have opted in. So what's the problem? Are the buttons not working? Is it not firing on mobile? Are things out of place, or is the messaging completely different to what's over in the ad? If so, then I would change what's on the landing page to suit the ad, because people are saying yes and engaging with the ad and then fixing it there. So, and in a situation like that, it's like no matter how much you spend in your ads and getting traffic there, it's going to cost you a fortune because you've got this huge bottleneck. So that's one of the big things that I see, is that people don't know the data points to look at so that they can make those decisions, identify the bottlenecks and fix it, rather than just pouring money in and saying my leads are so expensive. Well, let's look and see why. Okay, so that's, something I often see.
And it's interesting too, because it's not an overnight process, it's honing it in, and it takes a while sometimes for those ads to curate, for you to get that right combination. And then, you can even come back, a couple months later, and what worked last time doesn't work this time. It just, the color is now, out of fashion, and so that people aren't noticing it as much, or too many people using that color. Right. Yes. And so it's not being noticed, but there's really a curation period and a time to really have that ad curate before you really know it's going to work. And there's that fine line and tweaking process too. So it really is really a science. Facebook ads in many ways, and art and a science.
That's right. And like you said, something that's worked before, there's no guarantees that it's going to work next time, because Facebook, when you run an ad, it's going into a live auction, right? You're bidding against other people, other businesses, and it may be more competitive one week than it is another week, and there may be more advertisers in there. So it's always changing.
Now, Jody, do you see anything on the up and coming horizon related to Facebook ads that would help our viewers and listeners?
Well, like I said earlier, you can be sure that Facebook is always going to be adapting, because so much of their budget is from Facebook advertising. So they're going to be very proactive with everything that's coming out. Definitely something is keeping people on Facebook as much as possible. So a lot of us, where our strategies have been that we're sending people from Facebook over to our website to get them to opt in. So one of the ways that we're sort of combating the iOS 14 changes and all the privacy and less tracking is to keep people on Facebook as much as possible. So we have our lead form ads, or lead generation campaigns, as they're now called. They've been called that for a little while now. And that is where people can opt in directly on Facebook. You might have experienced this, where you'll see an ad, you'll tap on it, your information pops up, and you just go tap, tap, and you've subscribed. Typically, they have been well known for bringing less quality leads in, because it's so easy to subscribe. People don't even realize they've subscribed. Facebook have got a couple of features in there where you can optimize it for quantity versus quality, pretty much. A higher intent audience will get as many leads as possible. So there's a few ways that you can try and optimize those to see if they work. And I know a lot of people are seeing success with these lead form ads or lead generation campaigns, pivoting over to those, getting a lower cost per lead. And also those leads are converting to sales. So using that, staying on Facebook as much as possible. So that's where I see that Facebook will really be, working towards, is like, okay, let's keep people on the platform as much as possible so that we can keep as much data as possible. So typically with advertisers for info products and digital courses or whatever, we haven't been able to have purchases that go through Facebook. So, that's something that I'm anticipating that hopefully eventually will change, that people will be able to do their purchases directly through Facebook. And then again, we'll be able to keep that information.
I love that. Those are some really great ideas. One of the things that I like to ask our guests, if you could leave our audience with one piece of advice, and it can be personal, it can be business, what would that one piece of advice be?
Ooh, personal or business? Okay, well, I'll just stay in business. Well, it would be, and especially then when it comes to Facebook ads, that we're playing a long game here. So often I hear from clients or, people coming to work with me directly, or my clients getting clients, is they have people who sign up for their product or service that says, oh, I've been watching you for 6 months, or I've been watching you for a while. So it's not just an instant thing. While we do capture people who are in that 2% or whatever that's ready to take action straight away, it's a long game, because we need to remember that not everyone walks into a shop and buys something straight away. People come in, they look, they browse, they continue on. So when it comes to Facebook ads, it's a long game strategy. And so that's where having those awareness ads that are just out in the newsfeed is going to be nurturing your prospective customers for that time when they are ready to buy. So just for a few dollars a day, you can be out visible in the newsfeed, attracting and nurturing your ideal clients. It's not all about, I've got to get these ads out and I'm going to get results and, ROI straight away. It's nurturing and playing a long game. And by doing that, you're building up a loyal, audience who is knowing you, liking you, and trusting you, so that when it comes time for them to purchase, you're the one that they're going to think about, rather than someone else who's just run a conversion campaign and then run off to find, the next person who's going to opt in. So long game strategy, it is always the way to go with our Facebook ads.
Oh yeah. And what we found is, if you publish interesting content, sometimes people will just like the page and then suddenly they're just following all your articles anyway, that you're putting out in all your posts anyway. So lots of goodness can happen with that. Now, Jody, in terms of being able to find you and work with you, whether that be you training us how to create our own ads or you doing it as a done for you service, how do we reach you? How do we contact you in order to get that done?
Okay, well, you can just head to jodymillwood.com. And also I am on Facebook, obviously. So you can just find me there, Jody Millwood, and send me a DM. I'm pretty approachable. So that's the best way to reach out.
Thank you. And I'm going to also drop Jody's contact information in the show notes. So if you can scroll down a little bit further, you'll be able to contact her at her website and Facebook and have her information, so that, because I know sometimes the spelling of last names are a little bit difficult, but don't worry, guys, we got it in the show notes. You'll be able to find it. Thank you, Jody, for joining us today and sharing your knowledge and wisdom.
Thank you so much for having me. It has been a blast talking about Facebook ads. Hopefully I haven't been too nerdy and everyone's eyes have glazed over.
It's all good. All good. All goodness there. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.